we see that whenever we get any media from WhatsApp, it typically auto downloads to your gallery, even if you have those disappearing messages enabled, right? For example, Instagram and Facebook messengers, they have these vanish modes, but people tend to forget that they can always take a screenshot of that particular story or post. They think that, oh, it's just 24-hour thing, it's gone, once it's done, it's gone. But that outlook should
it stays,
right?
it stays there. If it is not getting featured, doesn't matter. It gets featured and gets stored somewhere else, and that's why you see people, someone who has, people would pull out things from the past and bring it up. I think it's important both from a user standpoint, publisher standpoint, creator standpoint. We need to ensure that we respect the four pillars, which where I started from, which is the technology, content creator, user, and the kind of content that you're looking at creating. So I think it's very important.
There have been so many instances of celebrities as well who've been called out for
Absolutely.
previous tweets that they have made, maybe offensive tweets that they have made in their teenage years.
Absolutely,
right?
yes, and I think it holds true, because the digital footprints with respect to what you're trying to communicate. Yes, while you have evolved, your thought process would have evolved over a period of time, but you've left a trail behind.
Definitely.
For someone to follow you to call it out. So I think, yeah, it's important that people and brands stay mindful of what you like looking at creating. Guidelines are important, and I think those use cases are controlled, but I think the filters are a little too fast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Kofluence Unplugged. Hi, I'm your host, Aritra. Now, today we're talking about a subject that is very fascinating because it's not talked about much. It's called ephemeral content. Now, you may or may not know what it is, but I am sure you would have interacted with ephemeral content at least once when you log into your social media handles. So, what it is, how it works, let's unpack this whole situation. And joining me today in this conversation, we have Nishant Poddar, who is currently the Chief Marketing Officer and Head of Retail Services at Wrogn, the brand co owned by Virat Kohli, yes, which is making strides in the fashion segment. So, without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Nishant. Hi, Nishant, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for having me.
That's great. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself? You are currently working with Wrong. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you do there, how the journey has been like?
Well, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer and Head of Retail Experience at Wrong, and been part of the founding team. Started with the brand, from day minus 100, and have lived through the journey over a decade now. Right now, I'm primarily the sole custodian for anything which the brand and the customer has to do. So that's where it is. Prior to working with Wrong, I was working with Coffee Day straight out of my post graduation after doing my MBA. I joined Coffee Day and start from management trainee, and when I left them, I was leading packaged food and beverage marketing and sales for them, and that's where it is. Yeah, I've been doing marketing all my life, and that's where what I do, and yeah, that's where I'm here.
Okay, that's great. I think, given the topic at hand, you would have plenty of insights to share from your side. The theme for this episode is more so on ephemeral content.
Right.
Now, before we get into the fun bit of the conversation, I wanted to ensure that everyone's on the same page. Now, the word ephemeral content is a buzzword still, I would say. A lot of people don't know what it actually means, what it is. So, if you can break it down a little bit in plain language, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So, Aritra, before we get there, I would largely, want to tell you saying that what are the four pillars, largely the pillars of what content is all about. Content is largely with respect to, user, the consumer, the technology, and the platform, and everything revolves around it. How you're looking at identifying your, your course content and all of it. It is largely within these peripherals. Uh, I think as a marketeer, what's more important and how we look at it is before trying to arrive at a solution, we need to firstly identify the question and then try and build around it. That's one mistake is like mostly, marketers trying to follow a trend and then try to create content and give it out to the consumers. I think we try and follow a different approach where we try and identify the problem statement and then use the four matrices and then use it and push it out. Platform becomes very important because the world is so dynamic. Every now and then the platforms are changing their algorithms, their set of workings, and every now and then there are new tools getting involved. So it's important that we need to constantly stay in touch with the best practices and try and involve them in the kind of content that also getting created. uh, Again, for different brands or different setups, different content type works, whether it is preachy, whether it is whether it is informatory. I think how we see it is, for us it's largely the four content buckets how a content will work out. So if the content is not quirky, if the content is not entertaining, if the content is not unpredictable, if the content is not aspirational, out of the four buckets that I've mentioned, if the content doesn't tick two boxes, we will not release a content. And that's something that as a conscious choice, we have taken up. And I think what we're trying to do is we're sticking to this. That's our core theme. We stick to this, and any content we churn out with, we see that any of the two boxes are getting ticked or not. If not, irrespective of how much money has gone in, how good a content is, if it is not ticking, we will not. And that's what brand ethos for Wrong stands for. So that's how we see it, and I think most marketers should look at it from their brand lens and put out content pieces in that form and factor. Now, if I were to further divide it, whether it is you using a channel like an Instagram or a Facebook, again, different kind of working that you have. While an Instagram, I was reading a report and I see that about 57% of the youth are on Instagram, and that's how it is. And in fact, one of the reports that you guys had also published, I was going through that as well. So I did see that, saying that, and given the fact that it's so much in consumption, I think it's important that the effort should be high enough on a certain platform, and that's how it is. Yes, we understand that the world is revolving around pay and play method, and it's important that the organic reach goes up. You need to push in some money so that it goes out, but ultimately it is the kind of content which takes the lead. And that's the most important factor, which I think. Yeah. So that's what I have to say. Now, coming back to you were referring to the ephemeral content. See, it's to call it out, it's largely a fleeting kind of content, right? It's something which has a limited scope, with respect to the time frame that it would last. And that's how the entire thesis came out. It started way back in 2012, if I remember it correctly, on Snapchat. With the whole focus saying that when it started, people had given it, saying that it's not going to last, because when individuals or creators are investing so much of time, money, effort, and energy to create kind of content, why would you need this kind of form and factor? But everyone was wrong. I mean, it has caught up like anything, and now most platforms have that as an offer.
Definitely. I think Snapchat, as you mentioned, was the first that kind of brought it to the mainstream, and
Yes.
then Instagram came up with their own story format, and then that followed with Facebook in
Facebook is there.
2017, I think.
LinkedIn is there. Twitter has its
Yeah,
fleet. So
yeah,
that's how it
correct,
is. And
correct.
it largely 24 hours. And now WhatsApp has it. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have a status putting on,
Yeah.
it stays for 24 hours.
Right.
So
Even your disappearing messages, those
Yes,
short-lived,
absolutely.
vanish mode, a
Vanish
lot
mode,
of
all of it,
different.
and it's all building on it. So everything
Definitely.
started there, saying, okay, if I'm going to tell something, and it's going to, it's something like Tom Cruise movie where you see, okay, fine, something, the message will be distracted in 10 seconds from now. Once you've got that message delivered, it's out. So largely, it's in that form and factor. So where your attentions are high, you
Yeah.
want to take a look at it, and it's like it creates an idea of FOMO, where you want to really take a look at it, what is it all about, and then you want to move out. So that's
It's
how.
that immediacy factor, right?
Absolutely, it is largely, it has a certain call to action, where you want to give out some offers, which is a
Yeah.
limited time offer, or maybe you want to call out for an exclusivity where somebody sees it. But trust me, what we have seen is stories gives out a brilliant engagement, and that's something which we have, given the fact that we have one of the we have world's biggest faces, representing our brand. What we've seen is, if I have a content which is out from Virat's handle, and there is a link in bio which goes on his handle, and while the caption says that click the link in bio and go out, versus when he's putting up a story with a link on his handle, the ratios are 1 is to 500, right? Someone going to his link in bio and clicking the link versus what is there.
Yeah.
So it works brilliantly for a call to action. People want to see, and obviously, every now and then when you are opening your social account, it's a click. Once you have clicked that story format, it auto updates and gives you all the accounts that you're following up, and all the stories that are out. So that's how it triggers. So there's limited amount of action that is needed. Even if you are watching a reel, for that one, there's an action of a swipe which is needed.
Definitely.
Here, once you've clicked in, it is an autoplay. It continues showing you all the accounts that you're following, and you can see all of it. So that's how it is.
Now, coming to, I mean, now that we have spoken about what ephemeral content is, how it's being utilized now, do you think, can you think of any brand who you think is doing it very well and actually leveraging this to a very nice extent?
I would, I would want to believe that it's my brand wrong, but yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of brands doing a fab job. I would say, brands like Zomato. I mean, I think it's the kind of content that they're putting out is brilliant, because it's very very catchy, and it plays with your human psychology. I mean, I have this philosophy, of, and which I follow, and I often, whenever I get a chance to speak about, I often talk about this. It's called it's from a professor called Jonas Berger. He's from University of Wharton, Wharton University. So it's called the steps phenomena. Why does a content actually becomes viral, right? Why does a content spread, right? It's the steps from, the abbreviation is S stands for social, T stands for trigger, E stands for emotional, P stands for practical value, and there is another P which is basically practical value and public. Okay, and the last one is story. So we'll start with the first one, which is basically social value. Why does a content spread? Like you may asked me, saying, why, do you think a brand, whose content works out? Because I like sharing a content, or like watching a content. I like talking about that content because it has a social value, which probably, I relate to, or maybe if I'm sharing it with someone, it will make me look intelligent. And it is not just me, it is universal, it's human phenomena. That's the reason why people love that social part of content. Emotional, obviously, when there is an emotional connect, you really relate to it emotionally, deep within, and you want to emote it out. You have a certain connection, and you want to send it and spread it out with people whom you think would have a similar emotional value. So that's another piece. The third one, could be, the second one, sorry, I missed out, I've jumped on the third one. So T, which is the trigger. Trigger is basically, it will have a certain actionable. So, it is doing something. If it's an offer, if it's something, okay, fine, limited offer, I want my friends to catch up, my family members to catch up, or my acquaintance to know that there is something on. So that's the trigger value. Emotional, we spoke. P, which is, the practical value. If it is, of a practical purposes. So if I'm showing some DIY, something which is workable. So if some restaurant, I would want to share it out, and that's how it is. The fourth one is again a P, which is, the next one is again a P, which is public. It's built to show and built to, flow. Basically, that's how I would want to call it out. It's basically, you release a content, you read a content, you want that content to get propelled out because it is doing something to your human psychology. So that's another piece. And the last one is, it has a story, which is a narrative, which is similar to how you want to portray things out and how you want to communicate. So largely, these are the, six pieces, why a content spreads out, and why does a content get shareable. So if I were to factor kind of content that Zomato puts out, I think works well. We try and follow a similar philosophy that, apart from the four buckets that I told you, which is a quirky, aspirational, unexpected, and so we see that, one of these angles of the, steps phenomena also gets featured, so that the content can be used for shareable. Obviously, needless to say, the algos to take over,
Definitely.
but it's important that the content is such that it gets spread out, and it holds true for even for the formal content that we're talking about. If the content had the right content pieces, it will flow in.
Also, I think with influencer marketing, we see that as per our report as well that came out last month, we saw that more than 50% of brand marketers we spoke to actually leverage influencer marketing, A, for authenticity, to leverage the authenticity of the influencers,
True.
and B, for social proof.
True.
Now, when it comes to authenticity, I think ephemeral content is a great way to go about it.
True.
Why? Because a lot of the times influencers and brands put out content which probably is a little bit less polished, more unfiltered, maybe sometimes even experimental, spontaneous, that they would not put it on their feed posts.
That's right.
So that definitely translates into authenticity for audiences, and they
Absolutely.
definitely relate to it a lot better.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think you're right. I mean, you hit the nail on its head. The world has moved towards wanting to see something which is natural in a real form and factor. And we've been seeing. I mean, we do shoot with Virat. And the kind of content that we bring out through our advertisement, through our communication, obviously has a certain tone of sheen, and it comes with a certain form and factor. But there are also Virat when he is not shooting, how he is and what is he doing. People are really interested in seeing Virat, the personality of the field. And it holds true for most content creators, because consumers would want to see, if he is at home, how is he dressing up, or how is he making his hair, and what is his makeup regime. When he's not with makeup, what does he look like or she look like?
Isn't that what the aspirational category? Doesn't this fall into a little bit on that?
Yes, but it is what happens is, when you talk about aspiration, it is also the real form and factor of aspiration,
Right,
right?
right.
I know that there is a polish, but what how does it how does it feel when it is in real? What does real means like? People would want to, and I think yes, because brands and marketers know that this kind of content is going to stay there for 24 hours. Why do I need to polish it out? Because it is there to do certain things. And I think less sheen is totally cool, because it makes the product look more authentic. It makes the content looks more authentic, and it directly connects with the consumers at large. And I think it goes more so with the kind of content creator that we're speaking to. So if it is a yes nano and kind of category of influencer, yes, it will, while the engagement for a nano influencer or micro influencer will be little higher than someone who is macro and little above. But what happens is, people would want to see all kind of influences in real form and factor. And that is a universal truth, irrespective of what the engagement that they're getting, or what kind of conversation which is happening. So I think you're right, and I completely agree with you. These kind of authenticity work. But see, I have this notion saying that the whole ideation of having these influences was largely for a community building, that I believe in someone who can tell me little more about things that I like. And that was how a community was supposed to build up. But gradually what has happened is this transition into a money making mechanism, where you are associating with brands and content creator who may want to do things for some quick buck. But I think consumers can again see that, and it is important that marketers be cognizant of that they showcase and associate with content creators who fit the bill in terms of what are the checkpoints that is needed for the brand showcase, or the product showcase, for the communication showcase that you would. And I think it's important that company like yours fill in those gaps. And that's where expertise come in, and which I think you guys are doing a good job, where you are able to identify with certain form and factors, saying that these checkpoints are met by XYZ, and hence we see a correlation between what you want to communicate, and this is the person who can communicate it well. Which on the other side becomes difficult for brand custodians, because we would know the collaborator world only from the matrix that we see, which is engagement. What is the kind of engagement that you're getting? What is the kind of follower that you're getting? What are the content kind that you are creating, and what are the comments coming in, like. But there are, when it comes with working with an agency like yours, we get a little more data, and that helps us to get the right the bang for our buck, and each penny spent is done in the right form and factor, so that we see, okay, fine, it's getting we're getting return on what we're trying to communicate. So that's what I think is
Definitely.
important.
Totally agree with you. Now, we spoke about brands, we spoke about influencers. Let's go back to user level. Okay.
Sure.
What we have seen with ephemeral content specifically is that since the nature of it is very fleeting, a lot of the time users tend to, share a lot of sensitive content through these vanish modes and all of these features. Thinking that, okay, if that 24-hour window is up, that the platform would not be able to track it or not be able to access the content.
True.
Which may not be the case all the time. So coming to security and all these privacy related concerns, what are your thoughts on that?
See, this kind of content was largely, created, or I think formulated for doing that, creating a scarcity effect where it is there for a limited period of time, grab it or it'll go, right? And that's how the human psychology works. And I think everything revolved around it. But you're right. Uh, it's important that any kind of content that is out, while it is lot unpolished, but it is important that the communication, any communication going out, needs to be validating, whether it is validating the advertising rules, which is most important, because if it is a paid partnership, you need to call it out, because the guidelines are such. I think it's important, both from a brand standpoint and the consumer, and the collaborator or the creator standpoint. It is important that guidelines are adhered, because if that communication is not clear, that it is this content piece is for sale, and it is largely misleading the user, which is not correct from a brand standpoint. And I think it's calling out those nuances are important. That's one. Second thing is, I think it's important that you brands and content creators should be clear as to what is the objective. If it is selling, then I think the content kind should be, it should not be layered or superficial, saying, okay, fine, I'm not trying to sell, but in the hindsight, you're trying to sell, right? It's, I think, not doing justice, or probably I would say it is not right, from a brand or a content creator standpoint, to the user, because at the end of the day, it's the user for whom you are creating this kind of content. So that's another piece. And I think any content which is going out from brand handle, is there for forever. Whether you see it on your handle after 24 hours or not, there is a digital trail to it. So one should be mindful of what is going to catch individuals' attention, users' attention, and you need to be cutting down. And I think it's important that you stay within the realm of things, whether not calling out something, stay apolitical, not, definitely not opinion, sharing your opinion in the big form and factor, because obviously social media is such a platform that it might so happen that you are offending somebody. So I think you need to keep those checks in mind. Those are some basic things that you need to ensure, that is, and it becomes all the more imperative if it is going out from if it's a content collaboration, whether it is from the country's biggest content creator or from country's biggest brand. Like, we are very mindful of what kind of content that we are creating, and what is going out from Virat's handle, for that matter, because it's important, because anything that he says, then he speaks, reaches out to so many people. And I think it needs to have a message which does tick the audience is in the right form and factor.
Mhm.
It needs to move them in the right form and factor that the brand wants. It should not have any negative connotation, because we need to be very, very sensible about it.
Digital footprints, as you mentioned, definitely it stays. I mean, I'll give you specific use cases. For example, on a very base user level, we see that whenever we get any media from WhatsApp,
Yeah.
it typically auto downloads to your gallery, even
True.
if you have those disappearing messages enabled,
Absolutely.
right? For example, Instagram and Facebook messengers, they have these vanish modes,
Yes.
but people tend to forget that they can always take a screenshot of that
Absolutely.
particular story or
Absolutely.
post.
Yes.
The concerns with security that a lot of people have now with social media, that these social media platforms are sharing metadata with third party organizations, with government bodies, all those concerns still hold true for ephemeral content as well.
Right.
So because that they think that, oh, it's just 24-hour thing, it's gone, once it's done, it's gone. But that outlook should
It stays. It
right?
stays there.
Yeah.
If it is not getting featured, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
It gets featured and gets stored somewhere else, and that's why you see people. Someone who has people would pull out things from the past and bring it up. I think it's important both from a user standpoint, publisher standpoint, creator standpoint. We need to ensure that we respect the four pillars, which where I started from, which is the technology, content creator, user, and the kind of content that you're looking at creating. So I think it's very important.
Yeah,
that we do that.
there have been so many instances of celebrities as well who've been called out
Absolutely.
for previous tweets that they have
Yes,
made,
yes.
maybe offensive tweets that they have made in their
True.
teenagers, right?
Absolutely. Yes. And,
Yeah.
and I think it holds true, because the digital footprints with respect to what you're trying to communicate. Yes, while you have evolved, your thought process would have evolved over a period of time, but you've left a trail behind for
Definitely.
someone to follow you to call it out. So I think, yeah, it's important that people and brands stay mindful of what you like looking at creating. And yeah, I mean, guidelines are important. And I think Meta, Google, everyone is doing the needful to control and curb, those use cases are controlled. But I think the filters are little too far fetched. There are a lot of loopholes there where content goes out. So I think it's important that from a consumer and from creator standpoint, we are careful about it.
Also, with ephemeral content, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the industry wide opinion is that it's good. However, we also see another segment of brand marketers and influencers that do not like this kind of ephemeral content, because they think that it may be superficial, it's kind of like encouraging that FOMO culture, and is that really something that aligns with evergreen marketing?
Right.
So there is this two sides of the coin. How do you see this
See,
conflict?
I think it's a tool, Ritra. It's a tool to do certain things. I think, yes, while an evergreen content would stay there and would do its purpose, but ephemeral content has a certain actionable. If you're looking at ensuring that your consumers look at the kind of content that you're pushing it out, it has a certain objective, right? If it is a, like I said, a story from our an Instagram handle would fetch a 100x kind of response versus a link in bio, right? So if you want a certain call to action, it requires a certain medium, whereas nobody has patience to go back and read out your URL and do. You want things at the at the fingertip, and you want, so it has a certain actionable. Yes, as a brand marketer or custodian, I because see what happens is this, while this has a certain longevity with respect to timeline, it also has a restriction with respect to the length of the content that puts out. If your content is big enough and it cannot be showcased in that quick lapse, I think it's not doing justice to the kind of content you're creating. So I think from an evergreen standpoint, yes, the real form and factor comes in when you're showcasing your kind of content in its full glory. This is not. This has a certain requisite, and it does what it's supposed to do, which is instigate someone saying, okay, fine, hey, I have created something, go and check new content piece on my new reel in my bio or whatever it is. So it does ask you to do that, which is what the requirement is, and that's what it is supposed to be. I think marketers have to tread a path where they are making the best use of this in the form and factor that they would want to use that
Definitely.
content. That's what my
Definitely. I mean, ephemeral content for some time has been, in the limelight. What next? What do you think is that next move that we will see in the marketing domain?
See, content is here to stay, and it's only going to be all about how different the content could be created. And I think with the with AI coming in, I think brands and content creators are getting smarter by the day, because it helps you, it assists you with so many things. That whether it is idea, whether it is content generation, whether it is content creation, it clubs up and it helps you. And I think the advent of AI into content creation is something that I am looking forward to. We've already started using a lot of AI into our content creation, and I think for next at least a year or two, it is only or more probably going to be AI which is going to dominate. And I think marketers, content creator, and agency like yours and the others should try and imbibe as much as possible through AI, try and include as much AI as possible into their content creation journey, and push it out so that it is relatable, it is tactical, and it is relatable to the trend that you're talking about, it is relatable to kind of product that you're trying to sell, and that's what it is. So to me, I think AI is what is
The
more
next thing.
important.
I think also content gamification has come in now. Like we see a lot of interactive content, AR, VR, that has been going around for some time. We have live shopping now. I think that is
Yes.
where ephemeral content has actually shined, because
Absolutely.
now there is Instagram live shopping wherein you can shop directly from stories. You don't
True.
even have to visit the website.
Yes.
So content is also evolving in that manner, right?
Yeah, and it's see, I mean, it's live shopping. I've seen while it's a rage in country like China and the others, it's catching up in India, and it's largely skewed towards women. I think it's yet to get caught on with men shopping that, because men's what bases our research, what we see here, we've seen is men are very very particular about a certain brand that they're looking at. They're particular about the kind of fit that they're looking at, and they are not very fussy about how they're looking at shopping. They would go, they know their brand, they would pick up and move in. Generally, we've seen if they've gone for shopping, they would pick up bulk and move out. The kind of colors that they like, if they like a certain form of t-shirt, they would pick up bunch of colors and move out. Whereas I'll give you a philosophy about women. uh, Women love to shop, and they shop things only they love, right? But you would often see that they hate two-third of their shop things that are there in their wardrobe.
Yeah, we
They
never
they
have
hate
the
it.
right clothes
Yes,
for the
so
right
so
occasion.
that's how it is. So while they've loved shopping, they have picked up and they've shopped only for things that they've loved. While, and most of the time when you speak to women, they would be hating two-third of the content which is lying in their wardrobe. So that's how typical women is. And I think it's catching up. The live shopping is catching up fast, and how. And I think we have time, but when it will become a rage again. Yes, it's fast in trend. But I think if you, given that you'd asked me saying that what is that one thing, I would still feel that it is AI. And probably who knows that the live shopping can be monitored and controlled by AI as well in times ahead. So that's what I have to say.
Definitely. So yeah, I think we're pretty much at the end of the conversation now. Before we go, I think I would like to do a small this or that section with you.
Sure.
So we'll keep it rapid.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Go for it.
So my first question is Instagram stories or Snapchat?
Instagram stories. I'm not a Snapchat audience. I don't have Snapchat on my phone, so.
Okay. User generated content or brand produced content?
Uh, See, again, I would prefer brand produced content, because there is a reason why brand, and there's a communication story which is there. While UGC is great, it brings in authenticity. But again, the communication, what you want to communicate is again from the brand communications.
Okay. Hashtags in captions or hashtags in the first comment?
Probably captions.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
something that's very debated.
Yeah, I think, but for us, for me, it's captions.
Uh-huh.
Not for the first comment.
Uh-huh.
Probably, I think we leave it to the audience to do its job, and
Uh-huh.
for the audience to take care of it. That's what
Definitely.
it. Yeah, it's debated though.
Yeah. And which actually yields more results. I mean,
It's
still
debatable. It's
very, very
debatable. Yes,
debatable,
yes.
definitely. Okay. Uh, Paid collaborations or barter collaborations?
I think it depends on what scale are you at, but paid collaboration comes with a certain sheen
Mm-hmm.
and certain form and factor.
Mm-hmm.
Because with barter collaboration, you're looking at compromise somewhere
Mm-hmm.
or the other.
Mm-hmm.
What is the objective? You need to be defining that and then moving towards things accordingly. But yeah, both has its merit. Yeah, from a company standpoint, you don't tend to spend. You're giving what you have. But I think from a quality of content standpoint, paid content definitely rules.
Uh, Macro mega influencers versus nano micro influencers.
From an engagement standpoint, nano micro, because the engagement clearly there is higher.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want a better reach, greater reach, probably you would have to pick up the other. But yeah, with Virat, we have the proof of concept. We're reaching as many and having the maximum amount of engagement as well. But yeah, if I were to pick at one, it's again the strategy that we have to look at it. What is the objective and who suits your content or type that you're looking at, which is most important, which I mentioned earlier as well, that you need to see who fits the bill of the kind of content that you're looking to create and communicate.
Agreed, completely. So, yeah, I think with that, we will wrap up. Nishant, it was lovely to have you with us. I myself have learned a lot of delightful insights from you. How was your experience like?
It was lovely to have be here, and happy to share my experiences and learning. And looking forward to do more of it. Yeah,
Definitely.
thank you so much. Lovely
Anything
speaking.
you would want to tell our viewers?
Uh, what do you want me to say?
Putting
Okay.
you on the spot, am
Yeah.
I?
No, no, not at all. I mean, see, like I mentioned, while from an outside purview, everyone has an opinion about content creation and content. It's very very hard. Content creation is, while from an other side, while it's just a fleeting content, you would see it in 30 seconds and off. There's a lot of effort, and time which is put behind it. Every single content that is put by anyone for that matter, there's a lot of heart and hard work which is there. And I think we should just appreciate things that are there, and move on, and that's how it is. And I think we should not troll if there is something which has
Yeah.
gone wrong. So I that's what I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Nishan, so much for being with us. And with that, we're at the end of today's episode. If you have not checked out our 2024 Influencer Marketing Report, do check it out. The link will be in the description box. Download it right now, it's absolutely free. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay happy, stay kind, and keep co-fluencing. Bye.